Now, we are in James chapter 1, verse 24. Quote, "For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was." Unquote, King James Version. Another version of this goes, quote, "For once he has looked at himself and gone his way, he immediately forgets what he looked like." Unquote. Now that was the Amplified Version. I'm going to read the ESV, the English Standard Version now. Quote, "For he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like." Unquote. Now I read the King James Version, which is predominantly my version that I use, and then I read some others so that I could get an understanding of what this verse means. It's kind of important when you're doing a Bible study that you do look at other versions to try to get an understanding. But then also look at the Greek. Now, I go to blueletterbible.org, is where I get my Greek from when I'm on the computer. For, quote, "he beholdeth," unquote. When we look at this, it's not used very many times in the King James Bible. When we parse this, it's in the aorist tense, active voice, indicative mood. Now, what this means is, in the aorist tense is characterized by the action, that is the concept of the verb without regard to past, present, or future time. Active voice means that it's being done now. Indicative means that it's just a fact. He beholdeth himself, and the next phrase, goeth his way. This is the only time this phrase, goeth his way, is used in the King James Bible. We're going to parse this. It's in the second perfect tense, active voice, indicative mood. What does that mean? It means that it is an active fact, and it's talking about that this is done in second perfect, which is the same as basically if you were talking about it in the other tense, just being perfect. So it's being done now. And straightway forgetteth, quote, what manner of man, unquote. Now, the first time that this is used, quote, what manner of man, unquote, is found in 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 7. And this is the only time James would have heard this or read this, because he's the first book written in the New Testament. 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 7, quote, "And he said unto them, what manner of man was he which came up to meet you and told you these words," unquote. This is the only time that this phrase was used before James wrote his epistle. Moving forward, quote, "he was," unquote. Now, he was used many times in the King James Bible, many times. Parsing it out in the Greek, it's in the perfect tense and indicative mood. What does this mean? Okay, let's look at John Gill's commentary on the Bible on this. Quote, "For he beholdeth himself and goeth his way," unquote. He takes a slight glance of himself and departs. Quote, "And straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was," unquote. He forgets either his spots, blemishes, or imperfections, or his comeliness and beauty, the features of his face. Be they comely or not, so a bare hearer of the word who is not concerned to practice what he hears, while he is hearing, he observes some things amiss in himself, and some excellencies in Christ. But when the discourse is over, he goes his way and thinks no more of either. This is the end of John Gill's commentary on this verse, James 1:24. You've been listening to Discovering the Scriptures.